Hey everybody, welcome to this video review with feedback. So let's start with this drawing from Abdallah. So awesome work, great drawing. So I think the drawing technique looks really great. So what I want to focus in on is story. And that's really important, especially if you want to work for animation studios or for commercial even. So how can we make this drawing stronger? First, I ask myself, what do I want to tell? Do I want to tell? So I think what you want to tell is we have this dragon that maybe he's giving a present or he got a present. So I would choose maybe he got a present. So the dragon, or maybe it's a crocodile, I can't really tell for sure. Dragon got a present. And then maybe let's add some emotion, and he's excited. So let's see how we can then improve that in the drawing. So maybe let him look at the present and maybe make this expression like that he's super excited about. So maybe something like this, and then this tail. Maybe you can make the drawing a little bit more if you make some kind of flow in it like this, so that you put this tail a bit like this here, so that there's a little bit more schwung in it. So another thing, maybe here this leg, maybe we can change this leg a little bit like this here, and then it also points at that present. And maybe we can see this other one here like this. Let's see, what could we do? Maybe make some space. What I also always really like is that things pointing at the point of interest, and the point of interest is the present. So maybe put this hand down here and this hand here, so there's more of a line, so that these hands are not, I think it makes more sense that one hand is a little bit below, one hand is a bit up. Also have a feeling that this present is a bit straight, so maybe you can make it looks like it's perfect straight, so maybe you can rotate it a little bit, just a little bit like this. Here these lines go straight down. Maybe if you rotate it a little bit, it will be better. But I think just those small things can be a step for you, but especially story-wise. So ask yourself, maybe first write down a sentence where you describe what is happening in a drawing, and then try to think, how can you make this drawing stronger to make it that if you show someone this drawing, that that person can clearly describe what's going on. So that if I see this drawing, oh, the dragon is giving a present, or when the dragon is getting a present, or maybe he's tearing it right up, he opens it. So maybe try to add some story. But I really like the drawing, how you make the lines and the colors. It's all great. So let's go to Daniel. So thanks for your drawing. So let's see, the first thing I think I would change is that if this person is in water, it now feels a bit like the person is floating top of the water. First there's lines. I think you can make these lines a bit farther, and maybe make this here use transparent blue, that it looks like this person is in the water. Maybe use here this, and then using a white line at the place where the water is overlapping the body, and the feet stick out. You have this part, it's underwater, and this part. And maybe this part you won't see that much because it's sticking out, maybe some places like this. And then here we have water, and that you then use that transparent layer. So a bit like that. So, and also for this hair, you would also see these lines, I guess. So like this here. And also like this. So painting wise, I would do that. So, and I also have a bit the feeling that you're drawing is that you're thinking too much in separate parts. So like this is an arm, this is an arm, and this. So I think what I want to tell is that you try to think it more as one body. For example, here with this head, if you put a little line open here, that, yeah, this is not really good yet, but what I want is that this feel more connected to each other. Also here with this body, so maybe that if you do, I don't know, this is still not really good, but that feels all more connected, these shapes. For example, also these legs, that you really try to think this swimming suit is going around this leg and then here, so that you try to think that it's one body. And sometimes it feels a little bit too disconnected. So maybe in a lot of cartoons you see 4 fingers, but I think with this realistic style you would suspect to see 5 fingers. So try to think about that. Maybe you can put these 2 fingers together and make a smaller line in the middle. I think that looks a bit better. But great work. And if I was you, I would focus on drawing with construction, and I'll show a bit more about that, so that you're drawing your characters a bit more with shapes and think about how to connect them. But I will show that in an awesome feedback video from someone else. So Shinata made this drawing. So I don't know if you wanted to paint it or was focused more on sketching. I think it's really good to first focus on learning to draw. So this is great. Maybe what's interesting, if what you could now try, take this drawing and maybe try to draw the fish from the front, just as practice. So how would that look? Because I want you to think in those 3D shapes, and that you are starting to think, how would this character be in from this view, or how would the side look like? And maybe even if we draw the back, how would you draw that? So I would draw this ball and this perspective guide in the middle. And next week I'm planning a video especially for beginners, where I will give some tips about how you can start. I think that's really necessary on my Patreon to have. So stay tuned for that. So this, but I want you to focus on this drawing part. So try drawing this fish in different angles. Maybe also from an angle that we're looking a bit down on that fish. Maybe this is a bit hard, but it's a great exercise, and I would practice this before you start painting characters, etc. And you will probably hear me a lot. I want you guys and girls to think in 3D shapes. So also here this character, and I think this one looks really great, but sometimes I flip my drawings to see if the construction is right. So I think this drawing looks really great, but we can make it more 3D-ish. So I think this nose should go a little bit to the front. Then here we have this mouth, like this here, sticks out a little bit. So I'm thinking in these basic shapes. So here we're seeing the sides, and here this cheek. So trying to think in those 3D shapes. And I think you can, and normally I also need some more time to do this correctly. I think you already did a fair job, but I think you can just push that a little bit more and maybe put a bit of an angle here in this neck instead of straight down to give it this more cool attitude. Same here. Even this simple drawing, there's story in it. So this story is this a cool guy. So if he lean his head a bit forward, then he also looks more cool. So this hair. Also try to think in those 3D shapes for the hair. So I'm always drawing this mask also to get it construction right. And if I was going to draw this, then I would make this drawing really light and draw on top of it to get things a bit more right, because even this drawing from what I did feels a bit wonky. But normally I start like this and I just keep working on it until I have something I like more. So great work, Caleb. Let's go to Dr. Dell. So cool bird. Smart that you used a photo as a background. So let's see, what could we do? First, the main shape of the bird. Something like this. Then he has these legs. I do like those. So let's see. And he has this watch. His wings here. And let's see. Beak. He has this worm here. So I'm trying to think, what should I want with this? So I think it would be funny to maybe let him look on his watch. So again, story. What do you want to tell? What do you want to communicate? So maybe we're adding him his watch that he's holding, and maybe this tongue. I would make this tongue a bit more simple, because you want to get attention here on this watch and on his eyes. Here we have this hair, so it's going like this. Also, I always want to have some flow. Then I would start drawing the big shapes. And then you can divide these shapes in smaller parts. So let's see. Maybe this worm is also watching at that clock, something like that. So I think he's it's like this beak is a bit cut off or something. I don't know, I was wondering what is happening here. So if this beak was cut off, you would probably see it something like this, right? I think it makes more sense to make like this, or I don't know, yeah, it could be. What is the story behind this? What's the idea behind this? And it's not that you can do whatever you like, but if, for example, if we look at characters in animation movies, every detail in the body that is a reason behind it. So I'm wondering, what's the reason behind this beak? So, yeah, for you as well, if I was drawing this character, I would also really start to think in those construction shapes. For example, for the head, that you really try to think about how is this beak connected to the head? How is this eye on top of this head? Maybe you would see this other eye. How is this eyebrow on top of the head? So try to think about the construction. And also for the hair, what I like to use, I always like to use small, big, and medium shapes. I will also make a video about it soon. But great work, Junior Doll. So keep making characters like this and try to focus on getting more construction in it and maybe a bit of story. Try to think about the things you're drawing and what you want to tell with that. So this is a cool Nintendo drawing from Kia. So that's cool. What can we say? So let's look composition wise. So I think this is in the middle. Maybe I would show a little bit more of this thing. Maybe I would actually start with also, what is the story you want to tell? So I'm really trying to think. So we have this sword. So a lot of times I start with drawing thumbnails first. So we have this Hyrule sword. So it's in the stone. So like this. Maybe I would use, we have all these red things, so maybe there's some light beams. Maybe there's a sun here and here clouds, something like this. There's sun going through it. And maybe I would go for a vertical shot like this. Maybe I would also put this a little bit higher. And then I would put Bulbasaur here. Looking with the stars in his eyes to the Hyrule sword. And so he's looking like this here. Of course, I have this thing on his back. So maybe I like this here. And then having this other characters looking, maybe there's a character here, this girl looking at Bulba. So I have a hard time telling about what's going on in this drawing. So what I would ask you first is, what is the story? What do you want to try to tell? Is Bulbasaur getting the sword? Or are these two persons trying to get the sword? What do you want to tell? Try to come up with a story that you can tell in one sentence, and then you can use that to make your drawing right. And I think your the drawing skills are right, but I have a hard time to tell what you're trying to tell. So let's see, and maybe what you could do, what I have a little bit is that maybe is the background a bit too much to the foreground. So I think the sky is blue, so I would maybe make this background also a bit reddish. That would also help getting more of the attention to the character. So that's a bit of atmospheric perspective. And if I have a story, I would start with drawing sketches like this to figure out what I want to draw and maybe try to see what works and what doesn't. So let's look at Evelyn. So this is a great example of telling a story. So I think the story in this drawing, and it's really interesting, please tell me if I'm wrong. Here in the story, this chef finds the cat in the soup. So now we can think about how can we make this stronger. So maybe I really like that you can see that she's shocked. So maybe you can push this expression a bit more. You don't have to do it as cartoony as I'm doing now here. But maybe also, yeah, what maybe would be cool is to try to come up with some different. So maybe she has this spoon. Maybe it's cool that if this cat is in the spoon, I don't know, maybe it doesn't work for you story-wise or anything, but I think it's just the first thumbnail, right? So if I would work on something like this, I would make a bunch of sketches like this here. Here we have this soup spoon that she's holding, and above the soup, and we can give her a lot of expressions, right? So like maybe she's angry because now she needs to make the soup again, or maybe she's laughing, or maybe she's really how would you say, shocked. So maybe she has her arm like this, and then her hand before her mouth. And can you see, I'm really making these quick, ugly sketches now. And maybe if this was for a movie, I would use a shot like this, and then sides. So maybe I want to have her here, and maybe this in the foreground here somewhere. So we have a little bit of perspective in it. So maybe you see some kitchen stuff here, like this pepper meal. And maybe we see here's her head. It can also be cut off. You don't have to be. So if you look at movies, you often would see also the people are being cut off a little bit by the frame. So something like this. I don't like too much that she's, yeah, I would do something like this maybe. Then maybe here, because maybe you want to show that this is in a restaurant. Maybe we got to give the perspective here. Here we see the doors to the diner. And I learned this from Ratatouille. You see that in a movie, that maybe you can see the Ober watching out. Oh, what happens there? Or I don't know. But then there's trying to add some more story in it and composition. So here I'm using I also like to use the rule of thirds to tell stories. More about that in the story lessons. It's great work, Evelyn. So I want you to think about, where are you making this for? I'm just asking, why is here so much space? Why is this straight? You could use something with the space here, or maybe there needs to be some text, I don't know. And I would, yeah, watch out using these straight lines. So, but yeah, there could be a reason why you did it that way. It's hard for me to guess. So let's look. So here's also some story in it. Cool. And the story is here. He's standing in some poo of some animal, or maybe it's just mud or glue or gum. I don't know. What I have a little bit is that it's straight, and then here's a tree. So what we could do, what I would do is I start always with canvas, and I like to start with this ratio of a movie screen. So that's something like this. Then I use that rule of thirds for the composition, like this. Then I divide this. This is also what you see in your movie camera. So it's divided in these 9 parts. A lot of times I put the character here. So you have this character here. So this character, I think the expression in the pose is quite cool. So here we have that. And what I do miss a little bit, it feels like, and I don't want to be disrespectful, I think it's really good drawing, but it feels a bit like, you know, those shoe boxes with a hole in it, and if you look through it, you would see this. Here's a thing like this, and then here is a thing, and here is a thing. There is depth in it, there's perspective in it, but it's all really horizontal. What I would like to have is some, so what I mean with horizontal, either things go up or vertical and horizontal, but we also have this this extra x, and I want, and you using that a little bit here, but I think we can use it more. For example, here with this tree, here these branches can also move to us fewer, and then we're using more for shortening effect. Then maybe you're using this. It's really happy with it, but here I'm using a bit of foreshortening, but especially here with this road, and then maybe you see this road getting smaller into the distance. And maybe we can use some bushes here in the foreground. Maybe there's a branch here that's also moves a bit, that has a little bit of that direction. So what I want, and it's called foreshortening, what can really help in your backgrounds is to use foreshortening like this. For example, 3 branches that go a little bit like this here, or vice versa. Roads that are here wide and that gets smaller. So then you get depth, and then you get this extra s, and not only vertical and horizontal. It's also, I'm going to try to say diagonally. I'm saying this incorrect, but I hope you get what I mean. But great drawing, and I would try to focus on that. So use that composition and try to add foreshortening in your drawings. So let's move to Daniela. It's a beautiful drawing. So one thing and yeah, this may be really negative, but I would do this, that you cut off these legs like this. Or maybe, so you could do, maybe it's water, right? Maybe we could do something like this. And, or maybe you can use some kind of effect like this, I don't know. It's a bit cooler, but this feels so always so, yeah, like it's really cut off. Overall, really good drawing. I really like the style. So what would I say? So I would try to add some, really try to think about how things are going around the arm, for example. This feels straight. So try to think, how is this bracelet? And I'm always drawing through my shape. So when I would sketch something like this, I would draw these bracelets also like this, how they would go around the arm. So why I would do that is, for example, if we have a cylinder here, and here, so I'm drawing this line around it, and you can see I'm drawing a bit through it, even when later I erase that line. So what you don't want to do is this, because that feels, you get this effect. Then you get these kinds of corners. And when something is round and goes around, you would have this. So try to think that it's also here, here in with these pens. So try to think a little bit how these parts go around. Maybe you make this a little bit wider and a little bit, add that a little bit. Also same here, you have this really sharp corner. And if you're looking it from the top, it wouldn't look like this. It would look like this. So try to think how this goes around that body. Maybe even here a little bit. So draw this little, try to think about how this goes around. So I want you, when you're drawing these things, for example, this goes straight. So I think there would be a slight curvature in it. So watch out for these points, that you get these lines coming together here. This is called a tangent. So I would place maybe this bracelet a bit lower, maybe showing a little bit of the side here, so that you're not looking at this, but that you see maybe here looking a little bit beside it, like this here. You're seeing a bit of this side. It gives it some depth, especially with this front views. You want to use show some depth. For example, if I was drawing a box, that you also show a little bit of those other sides. But great work, Daniel. Keep it up. And let's look at this drawing from Chris. So cool drawing. Let's look a bit about the construction. So I think the head is really well done. So this character is set. So what I do when I'm drawing a set character, I'm dropping the head a bit down like this here. So that feels extra set, because when we're set, we tend to look downwards with the insecure look. So here. Then great work on the hand. Hand is really difficult, so great work on that. So here I'm also using these kind of lines to create depth. And I would also use that here. Here you see this line here creates depth a little bit. And here I would also use construction. So here I'm drawing the rib cage, then here the shoulder. So you don't have to be an expert in anatomy to draw these things, but having a little bit of construction is great. So what I would recommend you is to, and again, I will show that next week in some tutorials, to use these construction shapes to draw your character, and also to draw the body in these shapes. And then you can use things like foreshortening, and then you will get depth in it. So maybe, for example, this arm, you could draw this arm with tubes, a ball, then here this arm shape, and here we have the shoulder, and then here we have a ball for the rib cage, etc. So try to draw your characters first with these shapes and later connect them. And first I would recommend people to focus on getting construction right, and later comes line of action and making organic drawings, but first construction. So let's look at Philip. So this cool, scary character. So first thing, color-wise, you have red on red. So if this character hadn't, so it could maybe work if we make this maybe darker, something like this. Then I would do something like this, so that it's almost going away in this color. So here it stands out a little bit. What you can also do is maybe, because here you have that green, just let's try that. Can I use selection? Okay, now I'm going to use trick, and don't know if this is going to work or not. Maybe we can do something like this, I don't know. But then you have this nice contrast. And can you see difference, how much better this is to read? So try to think about that when using colors. And this is called complementary colors. So I don't have this color wheel here, but I'm telling that about in this video. So you have a color wheel, and then, for example, here you have a red, and here you have green. And those colors work really great against each other. So, for example, if you put red, it's really big contrast. And if you would do that with purple or something, it's really hard to read. This is way easier to read. These colors bleed a bit in each other. And yeah, awesome drawing. Let's see if I can say one more thing about it. Yeah, I would also try to use flowing lines, like this S line here. So here, this straight for straight. So maybe you can use maybe a curved line versus a C line, or an I, an S line here, and then maybe straight here, here an S, of a C and an S. So trying to using a bit more, I think it feels a little bit here, a line here. I think you can have some more nice lines in it. So for a lot of times this leg is this S shape. So maybe try to play around a bit more with contrast in that, in your line types. Also maybe simplifies these folds in this clothing a little bit. And I will make some tutorials about that soon, about clothing. But great work, keep that up. So let's move on to Antonio. So this is a cool drawing. Let's see. I would maybe, so let's see. And it's not that you always have to use this in this composition way, but let's divide it in this rule here, like this here. And let's take this. Maybe put this here, put this, yeah, maybe put this here, like this here. Maybe this is more skewed, like this. And it feels really like this is on a high mountain. So something like this here. Really like this road. You get that perspective there. Oh. Oh, here we have this road. And maybe here's another bush in the front. Let's create some depth. Maybe here's another bush. And I would get this cloud away here. And if I want to draw a cloud, I don't think so, because I don't think it's important for the story we want to tell. I would place it somewhere here, some small, maybe here. You also use it a little bit to point to this thing, right? So I really like that. And then maybe I would use these lines here and then draw some stars. This. Remove. Oh, then I would remove these lines here. Maybe there's one big star here, something like this. So I'm feeling the drawing is a little bit of balance. Here it's looking there. So maybe I even place this canvas like this here. Yeah, I think that would work way better. So can you see how I'm also searching and playing around to find something I like? So then I maybe would do something. Maybe I would draw a comet. So like this here. So maybe there's a comet like this, because then there's also a story in it that is watching that comet thing. Maybe make it smaller, etc. But I think that's interesting, because here it's like it's watching at the cloud, and here it's watching at the comet, or maybe some star or anything. And it all depends on the story you want to tell. But great work, Antonio. Really like the colors as well. So let's look at this character. And I think this is great for talking a little bit about construction. So let's draw on top of this. And this is a great character to practice drawing on top of. It's really, this game's really inspired a lot by Looney Tunes. There's also some, if you Google or search for the concept art of Crash Bandicoot, then you would find there's some really cool concept art drawings. So maybe put this nose in front. I don't know how this character normally looks. So you have this line here. This goes a bit like here. I guess he has a little bit more chin. Something like this here. So it's really good to draw through your shapes. And I think you did a great job. I think this could be, maybe make this a bit smaller and then this a bit bigger, so there's more contrast in those shapes. So, but I would first make those big shapes and can really, so basically this head is one big cylinder, right? You're drawing on top of that. So here, then here's this nose. So I really want you to think in these basic shapes. So then you would have this side here, and this ear would be on the side there. Maybe it needs some more space there. But I think it's really good to draw these characters and really think about using that construction, using these kinds of shapes. And there are three basic shapes I use to draw characters. That's a ball, a cylinder, and a cube. And I'm always, when I'm sketching, I'm always drawing through those shapes. So normally you wouldn't see these lines, but that's really important to draw your shapes. I will also talk about that in the next video lesson. Great work. So Michael, this cool beaver study. And let's see, I think the colors are a bit, maybe it's a bit oversaturated. So maybe we can make this a bit lighter so the character stands more out. I think here the background is fighting for too much attention. Here it's a bit more neutral. I also think this feels a bit too white. Let's see. Yeah, I think I will want to show that with the ball. A lot of times when I'm going to paint, sometimes I start with making some simple ball like this to get the colors right I want to use. So here's the light coming from. I want to look a bit reddish color here. I think this for that color. Make this a little bit darker, but just a little bit. So something like this. So I think some of the colors are just a little bit too whitish. So here, can you see how I use this ball to get these colors, this character? I think maybe that ear is a bit too grayish. This too black, I wouldn't make it that black there. So I think also his mouth, maybe that was the color I used, but let's see. Let's merge it all together. Maybe something like this. Yeah, it feels a bit more natural that way. So I like to use different layers. For example, if this is his head, I would make a separate layer for the eye, for example. So I can always change some stuff about that, right? So I really like it and it's great work, but some places it seems a bit messy, like here, then you have this part. And if you put this mouth on a separate layer first, then you can shade that first without getting too much outside of it. So in a later stage, I will connect these shapes more with the hairs and drawing on top of that. But first, I'm going to make all these layers separate. And you can see the whole process of me of painting the snail. Maybe that one is useful. But I think you're doing really great for first time. I would just try to keep keep practicing painting that. And also, I think you asked for the bird sketch. I would also recommend to maybe try to draw those characters yourself to practice them, because then, for example, if you're going to draw that bird, and I'm going to draw that outside of my head, here you can see I'm also using these 3D shapes. And it's basically also what you're going to use for painting, because here you can see this side. It's this here. So I'm already really thinking about how those shapes are working in 3D. Great work. So awesome work, Frank. And I think you asked about how to get more depth in your drawings. And I think, and first of all, I really like your style, and I think this could work. But if you want more of that organic feeling, because somehow your drawings look like plush toys, and I mean it in a good way. That can be totally a good direction, especially when you're doing children books. But if you want to draw a bit more like me, or say Disney or Looney Tunes, maybe take an old Looney Tunes cartoon. Maybe you Google Looney Tunes, Bob Clampett, or take any of my drawings and try to study their drawings and try to see how they build their characters. What I have is that these individual shapes feel really solid and like this, but it feels like separate parts. So the construction is really great, but I think what you could use is the action line. So you can also practice figure drawing or study those old Disney cartoons and look for the action line. For example, if you see Mickey Mouse cheering, you see this clear action line, and you see that all these shapes following this flow of that action line. And I think, I don't know if it's a different way of drawing, of course, and I don't know for 100% sure if you want it. But I think, me personally, I think that can bring a lot of life to your drawings to get that flow and line of action in it. So maybe try that. Maybe look for some Mickey Mouse poses or something, and try to draw this character in those poses with more of an action line. It's great work, Frank. Let's go to Eva. So cute drawing. So what I also would recommend you is maybe take your pencil and start drawing on paper and try to draw in with construction. For example, try to think about how, is this an eyeball? Is this, I think these are little hands. So like this, he's peeking. This clothing. Oh, he's behind this. I think we see a little beard, and maybe we see, think about construction of his legs. Maybe something like this. But I think for you, it would be really good to maybe start sketching, and it can be on paper, and try to use construction. I will make a lesson video about that next week, more of it, that people can practice from or use from. So cool drawing of Farid. The head looks really great. The only thing maybe I've said, that's really hard to say with these front views, But try to think a little bit about these perspective guides, to think about how everything is built and wrapped around. How are these, for example, this ear, if you would see this on the side of that, how is this ear connected to the head, etc.? How are these shapes built, etc.? For example, you've drawn these front legs like this here, but what is the anatomy of it? Just have these, something like this, etc. So I want you to focus on also on that construction and how to build your characters. It's yeah, lovely drawing, and I think to also help you. I really like these lines, but it feels like it's it could be a bit more solid if you're using more of that construction and really think how it's really built to that. Again, I will make a video lesson about focusing really on that part. So Irene, so this could be a great sketch for an idea. So when you come up with a story, then the next step is to start drawing the construction on top of it. So maybe here we have this mouth, singing, then these eyes. Try to think about how this, how is this head? Is this really, so this looks from the front. How does this shape, how does his head look from the side? Something like this. So sometimes it can really help to make a model sheet to figure that out. But I want you to also maybe draw this character in these construction shapes and figure out how this character is in 3D. How would it be from the side? So here then this is the front, this part, and this is the side. This would be a three-quarter view. So let's look at Alexander. So this cool character, and this is also really great for thinking about those construction. So we have this action line that's going like this. Then we have this head. I think I would maybe add a little bit of, maybe we can show a little bit of the eye, or maybe not. Maybe I always like to show a little bit of that. Then here we have this wing. Maybe how is this wing connected to the body? So maybe here this part is connected here. So maybe it's not really clear, but I try to draw through my shapes and really try to think about the anatomy of the character. And it doesn't have to be 100 accurate, but yeah. I also hear these feet are also the same direction. I also like it when we have one feet that's a little bit this, and then maybe this one is a bit more side. So because that, I always try to use a bit of angles in my drawings. But great work, Alexander. What I also would love to see is a sketch from this and see a little bit of your construction with action line. So I'm also really interested in your sketches. So let's look at Jesse. So cool. See you worked on the dog and awesome work. So I also talked a bit about showing the sides of those cheeks. So let's see if I can do this bigger. Let's have this eye here. He's looking that way. So here I'm adding this mask to see a bit of the construction. So here. I think the ear should come from this point. Maybe, okay, maybe you can do something like this. I will come back later to that part. Maybe showing a little bit of the cheek there. This here. It's really important to draw through your shapes. I think you did that. So maybe side. Just a little bit again. So here we have the shape like this. Then here we have a shape like this. Then we have this cheek. So I think maybe you would like to push this really insanely. Maybe we can. So this part feels a bit weird because from a feeling, if he was looking, if his mouth's open, push this way so much, I think it would go like this here. I think I would also need some reference, but if we're looking at the skull, for example, let's draw the skull here. Then this would be the jaw. So if his mouth was closed, it would look like this, right? So here, this is the jaw. So now let's take a different color. Now this jaw is moved open, like this here. So jaw moves like this. So we have this here. So we can maybe, it also drops a little bit down. You can also move it more open like this here. So now we can draw on top of this. So here maybe this being pushed up like this here, but I think it would make more sense that you have this mouth like this here. I think if I look at Tex a furry wolf, yeah, maybe if you Google that, you can really see this Tex Avery wolf. It's also the scene that is used in the movie The Mask. I don't know if you've seen that one. It's a really old movie, for example. Then you can also see that they did this mouth like this here. Because this, yeah, this only happens when there's something pushing it sideways. These cheeks are being pushed upwards. So I think you would see more of this. So, because why would this happen? This would only happen when he has, for example, a bone inside his mouth, like, right? And that is being, it could be funny, right? That his cheeks are being pushed outwards because of this bone inside it. But in this case, his cheeks are being pushed upwards and not sideways. I think that is the whole thing. I think this just makes more sense to do something like this. How funny it would look, but then I would do something that there's some kind of bone inside this mouth or something. I don't know. But great work, Jesse. So let's look at Cherry. This is a lovely drawing. I would watch out with cutting off those feet there. I would do it like this here, or maybe do it here. So I think maybe somewhere here. But not, this feels, yeah, like their ankles is. So for example, if I draw a character here with this foot here, I would avoid, I wouldn't use this line here by the ankles or at the feet. I would use it somewhere here or here, but not at these points. Then it feels like those parts are taken off. I think really great work. So maybe what I would do here with these hands, I really love this style, and I don't want to talk too much about creating depth in drawings like this, but maybe if you leave this open like this, you get that more depth in the drawing, and you did that great here. So that's great. Maybe think a little bit about, for example, I think this is really stylistic choice. I really like that you used the lines for the characters, and not really per se for the backgrounds. So think a little bit about, for example, here. I think maybe this head would work better if you make this cheek flat like this here, or maybe do it like this here. Because even when you draw stylistic characters, for example, if I was drawing this character in 3D, we would have the nose then here, the eyes here, the cheeks would be here, and the ear would be here, just the back of the head. And then you can also start to think of this. You can also think of how would this look from the side profile. See something like this here, etc. But yeah, it's a really small point. I would watch out for where you cut off these things. So maybe if you, I would draw this a little bit through, show maybe a bit of grass here, draw this line here. So I prefer it. I would do something like this here, or else I find it always feels so weird when they're standing on that edge. Also, no, it's not a big deal. But yeah, I really like your drawing. It's really your style, so I can't comment too much on that. And I think the characters are really clear outside that. So great work. So thanks, Jerry. So everyone, great work, and thanks for sending your work. And I hope to see you more again next week. Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend. Bye bye.